Hey guys, in this video we will talk about how to reverse an integer in JavaScript, all while making sure we're keeping the correct sign of that integer. Alright, so the problem goes as following. Given an integer, please return an integer that is reversed. Keep negative numbers negative, so the minus sign has to remain in place. So if you were provided with a integer negative 15, you have to return negative 51. The second trick here is that if the reversal process creates zeros as the first digit, please do not display it. So if you were provided with negative 80, you have to return negative 8, not negative 08. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that the input and output of this challenge are numbers. Now that we have talked about the challenge and know what it is expecting from us, we want to make sure that we pseudocode the solution. What the first thing we want to do is make sure that we take an integer and turn it into a string. So we have the number, we turn it into a string. And the way we can do it is by using a built-in method toString, like so. Then you can reverse a string with any particular method that you prefer. I will be using built-in methods for simplicity and speed of the solution, but you can do it any way that you prefer. So split the string into an array, reverse it, and then join it back together, like so. And then we want to make sure that we are checking for zeros and the sign, and then we want to make sure that we are turning the number back into a string, and we can do so by using parse int, and we will talk more about that in the actual coding solution. Alright, now let's jump into code. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable, and let's call it reversed string. And we are taking the number that we have been given right here, and we are turning it into a string by using a built-in method in JavaScript that is called toString. That way we can use all the methods on that string that we need to solve this challenge. We are going to split the string into an array, like so, and we're going to reverse it and join it back together into a string as follows. So next we need to really check to see how far this got us. And what we're going to do is we're going to console log rev string that we just created. This really returns us a string of 002 minus, and we passed in negative 200 as an integer into the function. Okay, so really it is reversing what we have been provided, but the negative sign is at the end of the string and there are zeros in the beginning. So we need to do a couple adjustments to this to make sure that we are really passing everything on this challenge. Okay, so there are two tricks that we can really use to make sure that we are returning a number and that we are returning a negative sign in the beginning like how we're supposed to. So first let's take care of the zeros in the beginning. An easy way to do it is utilize a parse int method and passing in the string like so. What it really does is making sure that we are returning an integer. So it takes in a string and creates an integer without any floats. So that is part one. So let's test it out and see how far we got. So we are getting a 2 like how we're supposed to. There's no more zeros in the beginning. So now we just have to figure out how do we deal with a negative sign if the number that we have been given is a negative number. So there are a couple ways of doing that. You could do an if statement to say if the number is negative, return the minus sign in the beginning of the string. However, that will kind of make the code a little big and unnecessary. So there is an easier way to do the exact same thing. And to do that, we can simply utilize another built-in method, which I will show you right here. We will say math dot sign, and we are going to pass in the number. So now we will test it out and I will explain what's really going on here. So we do have -2 how we were supposed to, and if let's test it out with 200, we are getting a just number 2, so it's working perfectly. So now what does really math.sign do? Math.sign returns -1 if the integer that we have is a negative number, and math.sign returns a 1 if it is a positive number. So let's walk through this step by step. If we have been provided an integer, -200, we have created a string from it. So here, -200 becomes 002 minus. Now we parse int this particular string and create an integer. It will just return 2. And we are now multiplying it by -1 right here, because the sign of -200 returns -1. Now, if this was a positive 200 as an integer, here we would have returned 002. Inside parse int, we would return still 2. And we would need to multiply it by 1 to return a positive number. In the next video, we will talk about how to determine which character inside a string occurs the most amount of times. Hopefully you have found this video helpful, and if you did,